Due to the graphic nature of this programming, listener discretion is advised.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea.
On this episode of Cigars and Sea Stories, we're sitting down with Marty Skovlund and Matt. What was your last name again? Sanders. All right, and these two gentlemen worked on the Nomadic Veterans project, correct? Also, we have Sebastian Jocelyn with us, and Tim Parkhurst here in some house we found on Airbnb. So that's pretty cool. Later on, we're going to wind up doing a recording from the National Mall. That was one of the things that we're trying to get together on this one as well. So tell us a little bit about the project, right? Because you had this documentary that's coming out. It's going to be where? At the GI Film Festival, correct?
Yeah. Got into the GI Film Festival. The whole concept behind it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, and it's kind of crazy. We're here a year later, or nearly a year later, about to watch it in a theater. But basically, I was watching The Secret Life of Walter Mitty with my wife. She's 7 months pregnant, and watched that, and I was like, there's something here. Like, in the movie, Ben Stiller takes off with nothing but a suitcase and and goes off on these adventures, right? And it's based on a short story. And I was like, there's something there where we take off with next to nothing and see how far we get. So over the next couple of weeks, kind of formulated this idea of, all right, we'll start with backpacks. We'll start from Denver. And when I say we, I initially started off, I was like, I'll just do this by myself. But, as true tradition in the military goes, you always got to have another guy with you everywhere you go. So I called down to Leo, who's competing in Latin America for the CrossFit regionals. I was like, hey, can you come up when you're done and go hop some trains and hitchhike with me for a while?
Yes.
So he's like, he like no questions asked. He's like, yes. So he sold his place in Puerto Rico, or ended his lease there rather, and flew up, and we had backpacks, and we started off, I think it was June 8th, the night of June 8th, and went from there, and we did it all for a good cause. People were donating money by the mile that we traveled, which benefited Gallant Few, which is a great nonprofit organization that helps transitioning veterans. They also, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Raider Project.
Yeah, I work with the Raider Project.
Yeah, that's one of their sub brands, I guess you would say.
It's like the
or
equivalent
whatever.
of the Darby Project under Gallant Few.
Yep.
Great
exactly.
organization. Yeah.
Exactly. So we benefited them, and it started off pretty rough, as people will see in the documentary, but we ended up in the 3 weeks that we gave ourselves to get as far as we could, sort of nothing but backpacks and $100. That's all we started with. And, made it to the Italian-Slovenian border. So
wow,
thanks to the very generous help of a lot of people along the way, and a little bit of determination on me and Leo's part. And now we are here, a year later. Matt Sanders was the director, and also played a large part in the editing, and really is the reason that the film is in a film festival and not just a home video that we're showing friends. He's the one that turned this into a legitimate documentary, and we're going to be able to watch it on the big screen now.
Right on. Very
Awesome.
cool. Very cool. And just to recap a little bit here. What was your background? What'd you do in the military?
I was on the debate team in Huron High School, South Dakota.
Nice.
That's where
I was a space shuttle door gunner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I joined the Army out of high school, and went to infantry, one station unit training, and then from there went to airborne school, Ranger indoctrination program. Was assigned to Charlie Company, 1st Ranger Battalion. I was there for just shy of 5 years. Did 3 tours to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan, and then after that, I got married to my beautiful wife between my 4th and 5th deployments, and we decided to take a break. So I volunteered to go be a recruiter, and so I went up there and did that for 3 years up in New York, and actually made really good friends to this day with the Marine recruiters that were right next door. A couple of really good infantry guys that were stuck out on recruiting detail. But I went out there and did that, and that was when I started my company, Blackside Concepts, and then left the military. So that's kind of my background. Matt has a much more interesting background. He's a much more interesting guy.
What do you got?
I don't know if that's true.
Well, you know what's interesting because
I don't
as
think
I'm sitting
that's-
here
I don't
looking
think
at you,
that's
you
true.
have that black bar over your eyes. I can't see you, so
Yeah, I don't.
it's got to
I don't-
be a good story.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I very similar to Marty's experience, minus the fact that I never went to recruiting duty. I did 5 years in 3rd Ranger Battalion. We overlapped a little bit.
About a year or two, yeah.
I got into July 2002 to Bravo Company 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. From there, spent my time as a cherry private. Went to my first deployment was the invasion of Iraq, and then ended up doing 4 trips to Iraq and 2 to Afghanistan. One was a split trip though, where I started off going to Afghanistan, and midway through the trip, me and about 8 other guys went to Iraq and finished out the rest of our deployment in Iraq. So,
wow,
technically 5 deployments.
Yeah. God, that must have been difficult bouncing back and forth in between battle space.
Not really. It was actually pretty cool. It was my second to last deployment. And long story short, well, I can talk about because
yeah, you can make a long story long if you want.
Well, we wrote about it in the book, so it's not odd. We would deploy, like platoon here, platoon there, and spread the battalion out over, both Afghanistan and Iraq. And so we were in Afghanistan. This is summer 2005. And we had left to go to Bagram to relieve 2nd Bat and assist in Operation Red Wings 2, which was the recovery effort for Red Wings, which is Marcus Luttrell. And so we were there about 2 weeks ahead of schedule than we were supposed to be. We saw that mission to its conclusion. We were able to collectively recover Matt Axelson. My squad leader and I actually went down there with the SEALs to help carry him out. And then, so we did a couple other missions. Afghanistan 2005, though, was like very isolated incidents. Like if you got into a fight, it wasn't very, it wasn't like Iraq in 2005, 2006. So, pretty slow deployment. Did a lot of Bagram, Bath Shoot House type stuff. And then midway through, Alpha Company got hit on a daylight raid where they didn't have any no guys lost life, but quite a few guys were injured. And so they were the main effort for the battalion at the time. They were in Mosul 2005. They had 2 platoons up there, doing 12 on, 12 off, 2-3 hits a night. And so they, promoted from within, but they were still short on manpower because they had, sent so many guys home. And so me and about 8 other tabs went over there, and just the guy that was my platoon sergeant, Sergeant Van Alst, Master Sergeant Van Alst. I'd worked for him in sniper section, so I already knew him. We had a good working relationship, and integrating into his platoon. It's I knew a lot of those guys from Ranger School or from the team leader course, or just from drinking downtown or seeing each other around battalion. So it was it was great. I had the responsibility. I was a team leader. My first deployment was a team leader in general, so I had the responsibilities of a private, but the freedoms of a team leader. Just run around Talafar and Mosul. So it was fun.
Hell yes. So how did you two wind up linking up for Nomadic Veterans?
What was that website?
Leo Jenkins. Leroy Jenkins.
Backpage.com. Put up a mail for mail
right
ad. I responded. Leo Jenkins, who is also with our company, and is he's got quite the stories himself, but prominent athlete and now world traveler and author. But he so I was working on the book Violence of Action, and I needed some help with the section on the siege of Haditha Dam in Iraq. And it's everybody knows somebody that's for any event that it's a pretty small community, so I imagine it's probably something similar for you guys, where if you weren't in Fallujah, you probably know somebody who does know somebody, so that was kind of the situation. And Leo was like, yeah, I know a few guys that were on the dam, and he's like, and one of them is an actual writer anyways, so he might really want to be interested in this. So he linked us up, and I think Matt at first was not like a huge fan of the idea, but I think came around to it later on, and actually ended up, it's his story in the book is one of the most prominent in the book, and in my opinion, one of the most his and another's are probably the two most well written in the entire book. And so that was the first time we worked together, and then after that, he actually ended up taking on more of a role in the book. And I was like, hey, because he was a writer and everything, I was like, hey, can you take a look at this and give it the once over for editing and make sure I'm not, screwing this thing up too bad. And because it was basically, in the book, it's the definitive history of the 75th Ranger Regiment in the War on Terror. So it was and it's the only thing out there like it. So it's kind of like we really had the responsibility of making sure it was done right. So having somebody like Matt take a look at it was, pretty important. So we kind of worked together on that, and I was just absolutely impressed with his work ethic on it and the notes he gave me on it and everything. And it just became really obvious that, Matt was kind of a catch as far as, integrating into our company. So I kind of pitched him on running our publishing division. And Matt's background, not to speak for him too much here, but he's a film school grad. That's his background. But at the time I asked him to be a part of publishing. That's where he started off at. And then it wasn't, I think, until January this year, he was like, yeah, about this publishing stuff, I know I'm like pretty awesome at it, but I'm better at film.
I did not say awesome.
I'm better at film, so can I run all your film stuff? And I was like, yeah, dude, as long as you stay in the company, I don't care what you want to do, like just stay in the company. So now he runs all of our film and TV projects. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, he says I'm a catch. This guy's a catch.
Oh,
no, he really is.
Look at the love between you, man.
But no, I was quick to jump on his bandwagon. I wanted to be one of the first people on.
Absolutely.
And Leo, owe him a tip of the hat. If it weren't for him, and hooking us up together, and it's great experience writing about Haditha Dam. Didn't want to do it at first, but I couldn't get anyone else to do it, and the Haditha Dam is one of those battles that not very many people know about it. We've got like a sentence or two on Wikipedia, and that's it. But it was 6 days of, all together, 3rd Battalion was there for 21 days, but for the initial 6 days where my platoon, another platoon, and a couple squads from Charlie Company were there for the main battle. That was pretty intense. So I was like, yeah, I'll write for it, and ended up talking to as many people as I could, because it's been 10 years, you forget these things,
right?
And talked to my friends. Actually had my platoon sergeant's AAR, which
nice.
Kind of a long story how how that got out, but it's actually been published in another book, that I don't think that it was supposed to be published. I think the guy, weren't you saying that, we won't name names here, but didn't you say that they were a little upset about that book?
I think there's a lot of people that are generally not big fans of that author, so I don't know.
But he's a former PL, like he served in what, 2nd Battalion? And yeah, served 2nd Battalion, got out, wrote a book. But in it, he had downloaded off the internal regiment drive the AAR that my platoon sergeant wrote, and published that in his book,
and just took it and used it.
I don't know if he had permission or not. Like, I mean, my uncle actually bought me the book for Christmas one year. It was probably a year or two after.
Like, have you heard about these Army Ranger guys before?
Well, I was in battalion. No, I was in battalion. He's like, it was one of those things that Haditha Dam, because my platoon sergeant wrote the AAR. He recognized it because I talked about it after I got home. I wasn't bragging about it, but it was written about in the Columbus newspaper when the day we redeployed home. So I saved the clipping and brought a clipping home for my parents, brought a clipping home for my uncle. And he saw it and was like, "Holy, can we cuss on this?"
Fuck yeah, you can.
Okay. He's like, he saw it and was like, holy shit, you're in a book. Cause, I had just this little mention, but cause I told him like what I had done and, training wise. And, Yeah, but the job function I had, you know, within the platoon, like he knew that because he was in the military himself for 30 years, and you know, had that as a resource to, you know, use for writing for Violence of Action. And between that and all my friends, it was, you know,
that's the
pretty
hardest part about
extensive.
doing something like that is having that, you know, immense responsibility of, you know, we're literally writing history right here, you know, because this will be the new truth that is as it pertains to the regiment. So, you know, that onus on the people involved in the book to be as accurate as they possibly could. And you know, we all know, like, you know, you can take 5 different guys that were all in the same firefight and they're going to have 5 different stories, but you know, that there's the general truths of what happened, and making sure. And that was the thing I was really proud about with the way the book came out, is everybody involved had, you know, so much humility about it. It wasn't like a look at me and how badass I was. It was like, hey, I just, you know, I think everybody, the general consensus was like, I'm just happy I got to be around these guys and take part in this stuff and be a part of something greater than myself, you know. And I think everybody's real proud of that. I'm sure that's an overarching feeling, I think, for most people in the military. But luckily it didn't turn into one of those books where it was like, hey, look at me and how badass I was, and combat knee slides and stuff like that.
It wasn't like Navy SEAL books.
And the Snake Ninja.
Oh. Hey, Matt, you mentioned something a minute ago. I guess your family that you know, were military, so you have a sort of a legacy in the family.
My uncle was. My old man wasn't, but my some uncles were. Grandfather was. You know, the generation, you know, above my parents. You know, they all served. You know, back when there was a draft. What about yourself?
Yeah, actually, my dad was a naval officer. Flew airplanes first, and then transitioned to helicopters in the early Vietnam years.
Okay.
He never went to Vietnam. He got tapped as a flight instructor at Pensacola for many years, and sent all his friends off to get shot down, and always had some guilt to carry around, you know, as a result of that. But I have an uncle that served in the Air Force as a physiologist. I have a great uncle that was a Marine in World War II. And then I believe it was great grandfather on my mom's side was a Marine, turn of the century, last century.
Okay.
Oh, from Mae Johnson?
Dude,
Wasn't her?
Dude, really? Can I smack you now?
That was back when Marines carried like cutlasses and
yeah, man,
like into battle.
Yeah,
like not in your dress uniform, but like into battle, slitting throats and stuff, right?
Their issued service rifle at the time was the model 1898 Krag, 3040 Krag. So yeah, Philippine insurrection, Boxer Rebellion time frame.
We had a few guys that carried like tomahawks on their kit. There was one, I never saw it myself.
That's
but
like a trend now.
There was a platoon sergeant that carried a samurai sword, zip tied to the back of his molly on the back of his back. And
yeah,
I never saw it myself, but apparently that was his thing, was carrying a shorter samurai sword.
You know those big kukri knives or bolo knives.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. A lot of guys carry those things around too.
My uncle,
the bigger the blade, the
better. My uncle, who was a large part of the, I had come from a long lineage of people in the military as well. But my uncle Randy, who was a NSW guy in Vietnam, did 2 tours in Vietnam, had a large part of, you know, the direction, was a large part of the reason, the direction that I went in the military. But he made a custom knife for me out of I want to say it was like out of a railroad spike. I think it was after my 3rd deployment or something like that. And it was a decent, like probably 6-7 inch knife. And I ended up sticking it in my kit, and, you know, it looked cooler than what it actually was. It probably added a lot of unnecessary weight, because I think we all know really all you need is maybe just a Gerber on you, a little foldable 3-inch Benchmade. But, you know, I justified it with, I was like, oh, I can use it to pry open cabinets during SSE, you know, and that's primarily what I used it for. You know, I never slit any throats or anything like that, but, you know, it looked cool, and I was like, I'm carrying something that another, you know, my uncle made, so I thought that was pretty neat.
The elusive knife kill. Everybody's going for a Oconus knife kill.
There was a competition in our platoon between Leo, our medic, who went to the Vanguard. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Vanguard. It's
no.
It's like a Krav Maga school that's been adapted for military and law enforcement. And so this guy, we send guys there for individual technique training. And Leo Jenkins went, and the other team leader in my platoon or in my squad went, and I think there was a third person in our platoon that was in on this, but they had I forget what the wager was, but they had like a running bet on like who was getting their first knife kill.
Awesome.
With the Lashley, who was the team leader in my squad, like he actually was the one who came the closest, but didn't, he obviously didn't get one, but he and I wasn't there in the room, but everybody told me this is what he did. Is so long story short, we go with this Lake Tartar area in Iraq. We did this hit, and as we're like, and we landed like right on the X, like just right on it. My squad was main efforts. We were assault 1. We just beeline for the door like 100 meters. Like I would have been, one of the first people in, the stack because I was on the door of the 60 that landed, but his run through irrigation ditches tripped. So I get passed up. I have to pick myself back up. I fall to the back, the back of the stack. And it was just a small building in the middle of nowhere. And there's this truck parked right here. And the way the door opened, and the way it just panned out, we didn't bum rush it. I think everybody had this feeling like something was about to, like, it was just very eerie, it was like this house in the middle of nowhere, and like just everyone had this weird feeling. Like we knew it was like just 10 like fighting age males and like no women, no children. And so as they're flowing in this door, like 2 guys come running out the side door, and is brownout conditions because we just landed on the X. So like birds hadn't picked up at 30 seconds earlier, and so couldn't really see much. Ended up seeing these guys go out the door, and me and the RTO tried to get them to stop, which they wouldn't. So they're we engaged them, but they went into the room and had to clear through the room. They had sheets like hung from the ceiling, so they walk in, and that's the first thing you walk into, these white sheets just hanging from the ceiling. There's like an RPK on bipod like pointing in their direction, and of course there's no one manning the RPK because half of them went running out when we were landing on the objective. But there were 2 guys in the back room, and one of them, there's like, so the way it was set up was just this small building, one door in the front and then a back door in the rear of the house or rear of the building. But when the house where the building was constructed, there was a wall, but you couldn't get from one room to the next inside. But there's this, they'd like knocked a hole in the mortar or whatever. So there's like this big rat hole, essentially they could crawl through. So when they go in and the engagement happened all at once, there was a suicide bomber sleeping in the back of the truck. And so like when we land, again, he can't see what's going on. It's dark, brown out. He wakes up, starts popping off rounds into the darkness. Squad, had been watching him all day on ISR. Like we had been watching him all day. So there was a squad tasked to like intercept this dude. And we didn't know he was a suicide bomber, but it was like, hey, we're going to send second squad to ball up this guy in the back of the truck, the sentry, if you will. And this guy just woke up, and he heard the helicopters land, had like a pistol, like a Glock, started squeezing off rounds into the whole spray and pray in the dark, but prior to doing this, he had a grenade initiated suicide vest. So he pulled the pin and just, and he blows up, second squad like shoots him, before he blows up. So it's like second squad shooting him, I engaged those 2 guys, run out the door, me and another guy did. And then the dude in the back room stuck his AK, and everything happened at once. Like like it wasn't like these things happened like separately to where you could identify really what was going on. It's just, it all happened like kind of like within 10 seconds of the first gunshot. And so Lashley was in there, and he had his knife on his body armor, kind of horizontal like, and he's standing there with one hand on his knife, and because they're stacked on the rat hole, while my squad leader was prepping to throw a frag into the the other room to frag those guys. and he's standing there holding his knife like with his hand like right next to the rat hole. I wait for the guy to stick his barrel back through the hole so he could grab the barrel and start like knifing. And sorry, I didn't mean to touch the tripod here for it to create static, but and the guy never stuck his, I mean, those guys were so scared, but he never got his, that was the closest he got, and everyone talked about for the rest of the deployment, like, will actually stand there, like,
At least he had his hand on the knife.
He
right?
did. No, he was like, he was poised. He was this short, redheaded, angry, E5 from, he's a St. Louis Cardinals fan. He wrestled at Iowa. So he was a tough guy. Like, him and Leo actually went and did an amateur, MMA fight in Auburn this is back in 2006, before it was as big as it is now, at least. But he was a scrappy guy. Angry.
Is that what you call a knife hand? Is that the true definition of a knife hand?
That is a real knife hand.
That's solid.
Yeah.
That's cool. Locked and cut.
Josh Lashley.
How about you? You ever cut anybody's head off?
No, I caught a decent sized bullhead once in this lake outside my town, and I filleted that, fried it up.
That was the extent of it?
Ate it for lunch.
Good use of a blade.
Fillet knife, wasn't that? I think that's the only thing I've cut the head off of, though. I think
no snakes.
No, I've never. No, I've never got. Growing up in South Dakota, I always wanted to catch a rattlesnake, but no, I never have. Like I said, I carried a formidable knife with me on my kit my last 2 deployments, but the opportunity, like I said, the main thing it got used for was prying open cabinets. The opportunity never presented itself, and is what it is. I
think our military, really has devolved, and let me explain. Talking about the use of knives and things like that, and you're talking about the only thing you got to really do with yours is open up cabinets and stuff. At least back in World War II, you could open sea rats. You had metal cans that your chow was in. That can was between you and your chow, so you had a big freaking K-bar knife that you could like stab into that bitch and open it up and get your chow.
Yeah,
that's a freaking cool purpose for a knife.
Yeah,
that's true. And
you don't do that anymore. Now they got MREs and crap. I mean, what?
And there's no satisfaction to cutting when you stab the
plastic
MRE,
bag. I hit a plastic bag.
Right.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it's because when you're done cutting it open, you're like, fuck, veggie omelet? Son of a bitch.
Ham sliced.
Who decided this was a good idea for a meal?
Yeah.
Who was sitting around one day going, man, we got to come up with something kosher. Like, what are they going to eat on Fridays? Can't have any meat. Let's do a veggie omelet. Ooh, that'll be delicious. You know what it is for me? By the way, number one, I could eat still to this day Sloppy Joe MREs for the rest of my life. Love them. Don't know why.
There's a few MREs that I never had problems with.
What's a sloppy? What year?
Yeah, I know, right? Sloppy Joe came out.
This was around 07.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's after your time.
Was this with? So they give you like 2 pieces of like snack bread and then the sloppy Joe mix?
Yep.
Because they
You had to
then
trade
they had to
someone
trade
for Cheez-Its to break in to throw in there.
Cheez-Its.
Came with the jalapeno cheese too. It was a pretty decent meal. You had to work
I know. They stepped up their game big time on that one.
Yeah. See, back when it was hard, we didn't sloppy Joes. We had veggie burgers.
What was it like in the old Corps, Tim?
Yeah. No, I did eat.
Tell us stories.
I did eat sea rats once. When I was in 29 Palms in 86, we got sea rats once, and then I think they were just phasing in MREs out there.
It should be also noted that I was born in 80.
Shut up.
It should be also noted that you were in receiving on what day? July 6th.
Oh yeah, July 6th, 1986.
That was the day I was born.
Wow.
So we were in receiving at the same time.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm the old man in the room. Whatever. Make fun of me.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, hell yes.
Yes, I got a bald spot on top of my head. What about it?
You can't see it from here.
I'm starting to get a little bit of gray in my beard. I'm working on it.
I don't see a single gray hair over there, man.
Yeah.
Not one.
Distinguished.
Anyway, MREs have evolved a great deal, as you just noted. Just since you got out, they got some new crap. Sloppy Joes, never heard of it. Whatever, I don't know. But when I was in Korea in 1990 doing Team Spirit, we had we were staying in these hard-sided GP tents, and we had kerosene stoves for heat because it was freaking cold in Korea at night. And this was like in March time frame, so it was cold at night, hot in the daytime. Like a 50, 60 degree temperature swing. And anyway, so we had these kerosene heaters in there with a flat top on them. We're like, oh, built-in stove, right? So we go out in town in the market, went on Libo, grab us a brass bowl or something from the market, and then we'd all pool our MREs together and say, okay, what do you got? You know? And this guy's got, you used to have the baked beans. They don't do that anymore, I don't think. Anyway, they used to have the dehydrated beef patty and the dehydrated pork patty. You guys remember that? No?
I think they still had that.
Chirp, chirp. Nobody knows.
We had beef patties.
Were they dehydrated though? They're hydrated.
No, they're just
Hydrated, yeah, I
Hydrated.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
these were dehydrated. They were like about this size, about the size of a little McDonald's hash brown. And you could like literally crumble them up before you put the water on and sprinkle them into a bowl, you know, a bowl of heated water on top of the stove. And you just let it soak for a while. And then after it's soaked for a while, the water starts to boil, and then you throw all the rest of the stuff in there, like the cheese and the Tabasco sauce and the crackers and, you know, the baked beans or whatever. And if you got to, you know, get a little bag of soba noodles or something from out in town, throw that in there. Oh man, that was some good eating right there.
That
Good
sounds
eating.
like some good eating.
Yeah, man.
All this stuff really kind of makes me sick to my stomach now, thinking about like how much preservative, chemical laden food that we mowed down for all those years. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that our generation of veteran will not need like any work when we die, like to bury us. Like we'll just
We're already
naturally be preserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we won't deteriorate for at
Embalmed.
least 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm convinced. And actually, speaking of MREs and you know, being on a Marine show here today, that's actually one of my larger, you know, I only had 2 real interactions with Marines overseas while I was in Battalion. One of which, though, had to deal with MREs and a little bit of water. We did this mission. It was my 4th deployment. We were out of Balad, but we were the national half asset. So all we did was just go execute targets all over the country in helicopters. I mean, it was an awesome deployment, you know, no convoys, no anything like that. It was just super cool deployment. And so anyways, we ended up getting this mission one night for one of the, I want to say it was AUB, but I don't like, I've read things since then that make me think that maybe I've got that name wrong, but I guess for conversation's sake, he was like AUB, who's like the guy that was right below Zarqawi, you know, and basically took his place for AQI in Iraq. And so a very high value target. And he was out in El Qaim, right on the Iraqi-Syrian border, which is Marine territory out there in Iraq. And anyways, we got the mission, and it was late at night. We didn't think we were going out that night. We didn't leave until midnight, I think, which was pretty late for us to leave in the night. And it was a 3-hour flight out, so we were getting there right before dawn. And but you know, this is a big fish to catch. And as we ended up flying out there, and one of the most miserable flights in my life. This is December in Iraq, which is cold.
Yeah.
And 160th hadn't put doors back on their birds yet, and I was like right in that back right seat.
Yeah.
Like the guys that were actually in the door could just lean back in. I was in the back right seat, so that wind was
Catching
coming.
full blast.
Yeah, I had like snot frozen to the side of my entire right side of my face, and it was just really, really miserable. The whole time I'm just like, I can't even quit if I wanted to. Like, I'm on the bird. I just have to sit here and take it.
There
You
ain't
know,
no
it
bell to
sucks.
ring.
Anyways, we go and land on the target, and the guy had, I guess, left while we were in flight that we needed. And anyways, we ended up having to had to work some other things in the area to try and maybe possibly get a follow-on target. And so we ended up staying this guy lived in literally a mansion in Al Qaim, like was one of the prominent like oil guys in Western Iraq. So very wealthy. We, you know, huge mansion and everything like that. So we ended up staying in the house, and you know, we were out there just to do a raid, you know, out and back sort of thing. So we didn't bring food for an entire day or enough water or anything like that. Like at the time we weren't even carrying Camelback. So like I would just stick a Gatorade bottle in one of my GP pouches, and that was it, you know, light and fast as possible. So we get out there and it's like, oh shit, we got to stay out here all day long now. So we contacted the BSO, Battle Space Owner, which was, you know, the Marine unit there. And we're like, hey, so we're going to be hanging out in this house all day. And they already were kind of, I think, a little bit irritated with us because we just, you know, messed up their entire mojo that they had going on in El Qaim out there by balling up, one of the richest dudes, and he sat on like the city council and everything. Like, so they sent out a Marine officer. He was a captain, I think, to like embed with us for the day and act as like a liaison between the locals. And he came out. He was super cool, and he called out one of the platoons out there. He's like, "Hey, can you guys run out some, like a platoon's worth of like MREs and water for these guys?" We're like, "Fuck yes," like because we were getting pretty hungry at that point, and so they ran it out there. Marines came in and saved the day, brought us MREs and a bunch of water, and made sure that we didn't starve or dehydrate out there. And the nights were cold, but the days were still pretty hot.
Right,
And, got all that. So we were pretty grateful for that. And then later, actually, we ended up exfilling later that day, late afternoon, early evening, but still daylight. So the guys that normally fly us wouldn't come out and get us. So they actually had two Marine, I think they're like the 53s. I think they have like a slanted rotor in the back.
Yep.
Is that a 53?
Yes.
Those came and picked us up, and that's actually kind of a good story too, because our snipers you don't put the barrel down on a rifle, right? But apparently that's SOP on a Marine helicopter, is you have to have barrels down. And so the crew chief on this 53 came up to him, the rest of us complied, fine, no problem. But snipers obviously have a little bit more to worry about as far as vibration on their barrels. And I was like, "Hey, you need to, barrels down." He was like, "No." And the crew chief was like, I don't think very used to being told no on his aircraft. So it kind of turned into a little in-flight confrontation there before our platoon sergeant got up and kind of deconflicted the situation. You could tell the Marine crew chief was still not very happy about it, but it is what it was. And yeah. But that was my, one of two big experiences with the Marines overseas, because we just didn't typically, work with you guys too much. But yeah, that was, appreciated the MREs and the water, and anybody that was an L came and in late 2008, appreciate it if you're listening.
Hell yeah.
That's the same time frame we were out there, 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion, working out at Al Assad.
Yeah, that's where we flew out of, was the helicopter. The 53s that picked us up brought us over to Al Assad, and then Al Assad, there was some C-130s there that brought us back to. It was a big production for just turned into a way bigger thing than it really needed to be, but because of the implications of what happened and this big, I don't know.
See, here I am thinking that you're going to tell us a story about how we stole some gear from you. So this is cool.
Okay, so so I said that's one of two stories that I have about dealing with the Marines. The other one not as positive. So this was actually, I believe it was the same deployment actually. It was earlier in the deployment. We went and did this hit, and I honestly cannot remember even which city it was in. But again, Marines owned the city. They were the BSO. And we went and did this hit, and I think there was some stuff that happened on target. We're like, all right, we need to get the BSO out here so that they don't have, riots on their hands the next day, and so the BSO comes out, and we're waiting, we have to wait for them basically to leave target, after we do the whole battle space handover. And I think it was one of their team leaders or something like that lost his radio on target. And like, we just kind of made a ruckus in the middle of a bad neighborhood, and we're like trying to get out of here. Like, we're not trying to stick around and take pictures and see the sights, like, we're already kind of a little bit irritated that we had to wait for them to come out to begin with. And I'm sure they were a little bit irritated that they had to come out in the freaking middle of the night, in the middle of their sleep cycle. I'm sure they weren't happy about it either. But, anyways, they come out and they lose a radio, and it turns into this like 45-minute thing of looking for a fucking radio. And all of us were like, "Are you kidding? Like, it's a radio. Don't you tie that shit down?" Like, yeah. So
like
it got
an emitter or like
what do you guys use for radio? I don't even know. Like,
what
Well, it
year?
depends.
Same
This was
stuff.
2008.
We used
like
emitters.
2008. Yeah.
Empire.
Okay. Yeah. And we're just like, don't you tie that down? Like, that's sensitive.
When exactly was this?
What was what?
What month?
Late 2008. I don't remember the specific month. I mean, it was towards the beginning of deployment. So it was probably like October, November timeframe of 2008.
I seem to recall an incident kind of like that, maybe.
Yeah, they found the radio. They did find it. It wasn't lost on target. We, like I said, just extended our trip by 45 minutes, and all of us are waiting to get into like this massive, Mogadishu firefight, because it really was a bad neighborhood. And yeah, we had, like I said, stuff happened on target, but like we didn't wake up the entire neighborhood yet at that point. So we were trying to like, okay, let's just get the fuck out of here. And yeah, so and then they came out, and of course, like MRAPs, we landed outside the city and walked in, to be a little bit more, quiet, and they rolled up in their MRAPs or whatever you guys use. Is it MRAPs? Are you guys using MRAPs?
Yeah.
I feel like there was another vehicle you guys used as well.
There's different versions of the MRAP.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
anyways,
the MATV.
They rolled up right up to the target with those, and we're like, oh, this is so loud. Those things are not quiet, and like I said, we're just waiting for the entire city to implode. So my first experience with Marines on target was not as positive as the second experience, but you guys are even in my book because they balanced each other out. So,
well,
you guys are
not
even
in the red.
Yeah.
Thank God. Wouldn't want to be in the negative section.
The army, anything.
Yeah.
We ain't got the money.
But I'll tell you, there's one thing Marines can do in the battlefield is it's freaking logistics, combat logistics. We know how to get our chow and our freaking bullets to where they need to go.
Absolutely. Like I said, that was awesome that day. Like it really was. Not to mention just, obviously you need water out in the desert and everything like that, but it was just like a nice little morale booster of.
Hey, you know that, sorry to interrupt. You know that little unit you guys got in the Army, what is that? The 82nd Airborne? Remember those guys?
Yeah.
They during Desert Storm, actually it was during Desert Shield, before Desert Storm. They went over there and they sat out in the desert for, I don't know, a couple months, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran out of food. Well, I think it was the Marines. They gave them all their food, because we come prepared for a fight.
If it makes any difference, we make fun of the 82nd and pretty much everybody else in the Army.
Yeah.
Probably more than we make fun of the Marines. So I don't know what your experience was,
you guys
Matt.
Make fun of Marines,
That's funny because the
that
82nd Airborne is about the same size as,
Yeah, I always felt like, and I didn't have a chance to work with Marines very often. I went to the Marines High Angle Sniper course in Bridgeport.
Very cool course.
Beautiful country out there, isn't it?
Yeah, awesome. The Nevada, and then the Bridgeport, stock is, it's just beautiful. Like that, and it looks like Afghanistan. That's the closest thing to Afghanistan I've seen.
It doesn't smell as
the
bad.
U.S. This is true,
and it's prettier.
But like the Konar province with because the Konar province surprised me with the evergreen trees on in the mountains, and so being in Bridgeport is like, oh, this is, and but so 3-6 was out there with us, and we'd driven from Benning all the way out with all of our kit and long guns, and I don't know, 3-6 is from Lejeune, you were saying?
Yeah. Yep.
And those guys, like, I felt, and this is after I've been to Ranger School, and, Ranger School, everybody, anyone in the Army can go to Ranger School. It has nothing to do with the regiment. So that was like my first time really working with, big Army. And I felt like the Marines that we worked with, they were the scout snipers. I feel like those guys were more akin personality wise, just like the guys, like hanging out with the guys, just bullshitting. Like they were a lot more similar. I felt more similarities with the Marines than I did with like Army guys, and aside from some of the ball busting, I had one guy. The only bad experience with the Marines I've ever had was Marine. It wasn't the Marines, it was Marine. Is we were already out, and the dude always brought up Pat Tillman, like it was like, he's like, oh, I heard Rangers like biggest casualty producers, blue on blue contact. I'm like, what? No, negative. And like he kept on bringing up Pat Tillman, and I finally,
I think that's the only blue on blue we had.
That is the only blue on blue. There's been some training accidents, but
when you guys do it, you sure as hell know how to do it right. Pick a freaking celebrity. Good job.
Yeah.
That was a bad night.
I'm sure. Yeah. No.
But he
don't mean to make light of it at all.
No.
Yeah.
It's, after I saw Family Guy make light of it, that just.
Yeah. And we've got a friend that was in that. Actually, I think we know a few people between the two of us that were out there for that. And that's, it is a little bit of I think anytime that you have an incident like that, whether it's a celebrity or not, anytime that, guys, whether it was, bombs being dropped on, too close and guys get hurt, anything like that, I think it's always, it's worse than just being killed in action, it's, so, it is what it is. But yeah, I think that's the only blue on blue incident that I know of for us anyways. But
yeah,
I'm sure there's plenty of Rangers out there too that have acted like assholes around other guys.
There's been, like I said, there's been a couple. Like, I don't think they weren't KIA though. It was just like they were, because we do a lot of live fire, like shoot houses.
Yeah.
And so,
sure,
I think I remember hearing about something. I think what happened is they just shot through the wrong wall, and they were doing a detail on the opposite side of that wall, and it just and then back in the 90s, like they were doing dry fire drills, and this dude this is before they had created the SOP to,
clear out before you do dry fire.
Apparently, like, I don't know, like I don't know the story. It's one of the saddest stories I've heard for as far as training accident goes. But they were just doing dry fires, and his team leader was working with a brand new private, and brand new private, they're just, and he was having them, because I guess I wasn't there. This is back in the 90s, but I always imagined that the private probably wasn't aiming center mass, or it wasn't, and so he was trying to give him that visual reference and send around and just hit him center mass, and
Jesus.
Yeah.
My God.
As far as combat, yeah, Tillman's the only blue on blue, but yeah, this guy would always, like the NFL, we'd be watching football, and the worst part about it is like, this is around like civilians. If it was like just the guys talking, we're all, like, because when you're talking to just other military guys, it's a lot, you're a lot more candid than you are with civilians. And like, so we're hanging out with civilians that I went to film school with, and like this dude's like bringing up, telling us, just like, dude,
not the venue.
Well, by definition, Marines are badass, but we have our share of dicks too. So
every organization does.
The Army has
the
Army has the most. The Army has the most. The Army, like, I hated Big Army when I was in the regiment. Not to be an elitist, but Big Army. There's just so much.
There's a lot of good guys in Big Army, but there's also a lot of,
big.
Yeah, it's big. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's big. And even in the most elite units out there, there's the assholes. We've seen them come to light in the past year or two now. At the very highest levels, we've got assholes that make it through. And then, and it is what it is. It's no branch, and certainly no unit is immune to it, And I think that's the thing that I always try to keep into consideration when I meet a guy from another unit or something like that. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to let this one guy, or even let's say one platoon in one instance, reflect on the entire organization, because, hey, there's some guys have an off day, or some guys just make it through the shit screener, and, it is what it is, but, I think that's one of the things, especially too, like with us now coming more and more into the public spotlight, there's always that onus of like, all right, man, we don't want to look bad on the regiment, or on the Army or anything like that. It's like, you always have to be cognizant of like, all right, when we come on the radio or on a podcast or something like that, it's not just ourselves that we're representing, especially when we get introduced as, former Army Rangers or something like that. It's like, okay, you're representing an entire organization, like, act accordingly.
And see, I feel like the Marine Corps is, very similar in that regard, where, your guys' esprit de corps, pride of service, pride of the Marine Corps, as far as branches go, I think you guys are, probably the most proud branch there is. You guys have the most, the veterans, like, once a Marine, always a Marine. And that's something that I feel like is true, like, you meet a 60, 70-year-old Marine, I know an old, he was a Navy Corps, but he was attached to Marine.
Well,
so
there you go. Yeah.
Still a Marine. He was in Way City in 68 during Tet. And, he Semper Fidelis, like he still goes to the Globe and Anchor.
The Eagle Globe and Anchor.
Yeah, for the birthday. That's like a
in near Quantico, the Globe and Laurel.
Globe and Anchor Society, or is that? It's something. It's a Marine fraternity. It's a Marine veteran fraternity, and for your guys for the birthday every year, like he still goes to it. Like Pat Roberts was that the one that he brought me to. I was already out, and he's like, "Yeah, why don't you come to your Class A's?" I didn't want to disappoint, so I had to put on like Army Class A's. My haircut was just barely AR-670-1, and I was nervous because I was thinking.
You translate that what you just said?
AR-670-1 is the dress and appearance regulations for the Army.
I knew that's what it was. Okay, got it.
And so I was really nervous because I was thinking like, oh man, I'm going to in uniform. Like I'd been out for like maybe 6 months, so it was this reversion. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, my haircut's not, I made sure I was, shaven completely, but I was like, my haircut, like someone's gonna call me out for being in the Army. They're like, what the hell are you doing here? And like that ceremony, for your guys' birthday. I mean, maybe the Army does something like that, but it was, like whatever the society was, like they put on, it was in a convention center. Senator Pat Roberts was there. They had a color guard of active duty Marines, like it was a big deal. And there were probably 200 people there, like this is in Kansas City in like 2007, excuse me.
Well, there's a lot of Marine Corps organizations. I mean, there's the Marine Corps Association. There's the
Marine Corps League.
The Marine Corps League, yeah.
That's huge. They do all the Marine expos, Marine Southwest, and then Modern Day Marine at Quantico.
Gotcha.
They're huge. They do a variety of different things.
And then, of course, you got all the Marine Corps units that are scattered around the world. The reserve units. Anywhere there's a reserve unit in small town USA, or Marine detachment on some other service base, like at Fort Bragg or Benning or Fort Leonard Wood or whatever. Everywhere that there's more than one Marine, you'll find a ceremony like you saw.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's esprit de corps right there.
Yeah, it kind of is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like the oldest Marine and the youngest Marine present. So how they cut the cake is they draw an NCO sword and then cut the cake that way. And the oldest Marine and youngest Marine present are served the first two pieces.
And the oldest Marine passes the cake to the youngest Marine, symbolizing the passing of knowledge and experience.
That's exactly how
to
they
the new
did
generation.
It for the Marine Corps birthday party celebration that I went to.
There's an SOP essentially for it.
That's everybody, and that's
there's a Marine Corps order that tells you how to do it. And it's been that way ever since General Lejeune, not Lejeune. There's no R in it. Anyway, whatever. General Lejeune, was a World War I hero, former commandant of the Marine Corps back in the day. And he basically gave the first, birthday ball message, and that message is reread every year, in addition to the current commandant's message.
It's a good tradition.
Reissued as general order or whatever. Yeah,
it's crazy too. People have asked us, they're like, "What's it like going to a Marine Corps ball in like Vegas or San Diego or something like that?" Because it's a huge deal to us, massive. And the only way to properly or adequately describe it is it's like prom on crack. It's like you're, like women get dressed to the nines because men are rocking dress blues. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And it's just a really good freaking time. It's not like mandatory fun day.
Mm-hmm.
You go and you do your ceremony and stuff like that. And then it's like, sweet, we're back from wherever. And the other thing too, that's fantastic about it, which I was not prepared for, was like we were in Ramadi in from September of 05 until March of 06. Marine Corps birthday ball is November 10th, 1775. So we missed our birthday ball. So what do we do when we get back from deployment? Have a makeup birthday ball. It has to happen. So, I mean, no matter which Laughlin was not prepared for that one. I'm here to tell you right now,
Really?
Laughlin, Nevada was not ready for that. It's like, when you unleash even a battalion worth of Marines in full dress blues, it's like whatever city you're in just kind of goes like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, Jesus, there's going to be some fucked up shit happening tonight.
Yeah, we were, me and Lauren, my wife, were up in Boston for something, and they were up there the Marines were up there for Fleet Week. And we ended up at this bar, and the bunch of Marines in there in their dress blues and everything like that. I think I was still in Ranger Battalion, I want to say. And and to be fair, I think a lot of these Marines were not what you would call combat Marines. I think they're a little bit more on like the
Pogue side of it.
The show side, because I was looking at, everybody in the military. I think anytime you see another guy in dress blues, you kind of like size up what ribbons they have and things like that. I'm not even like in a judgy. Maybe some guys judge. I'm just curious more than anything.
On your chest.
Yeah, it's curiosity, and I know what a Marine combat action ribbon looks like, and that sort of stuff. And so I'm kind of like checking it out. And one of the guys in there, like, he sees me kind of like eyeballing basically. And, of course, I'm, like I said, still in Ranger Battalion. So I think I'm, 10 feet tall with a 4-foot dick. And, the guy like basically confronts me over it. And I'm like,
what are you looking at?
Yeah. And I didn't I wasn't trying to start a fight or anything like that. I was like, I was looking at you guys' uniforms. He's like, oh, well, you wouldn't understand and everything. I'm like, well, I'm in the military, so I kind of understand. Like, he's like, oh, well, what do you do? I was like, oh, I'm in the Army. He's like, yeah, exactly. You wouldn't understand. I'm like, come the fuck on, guy. Like, really? Are we going to play this game right now? Right. Like, really? Like,
and his answer is absolutely.
Yeah. Like, I think they were, they're out on the town. It's Fleet Week. Like, they're, I think, probably a few drinks under the belt, more than a few drinks. So I think he was ready to, at least one brawl for the night needs to happen. And I think he wanted to, be the one to get it going, and I'm like, all right, dude, I'm not dumb. I'm not going to, there's 15 of you in here and then there's me. Like, one, Boston isn't ready for this. 2, I'm probably going to lose. Like, 15 on 1 is not a my kind of odds.
Those are not good combat odds.
No. Right. So I'm like, all right, dude, like, we're not going to go this route. And of course, his buddies all see that there's like me and him are exchanging words, so they all kind of set the drinks down and like adjust the blues, and it turns out all right. It ended up the situation deconflicted. I'm like, hey, buy a drink, let's calm down here, we're all on the same side here, and buy a drink. We ended up bullshitting for a good hour or something like that. And, I think they kind of changed their tune. They're like, yeah, I'm in 1st Ranger Battalion. They're like, oh, okay, so you're not as bad as.
Right.
I guess I'll take that as a compliment.
Just add more alcohol to the equation. Yeah. It's all good.
I was like, I guess I'll take that as a compliment. And
thank you for listening to Cigars and Sea Stories. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Your comments make the show. We look forward to seeing you on part 2 of our interview with Marty Skovlund Jr. and Matt Sanders of Blackside Concepts.
Are we taking a recess?